So, welcome to our pilot episode of the Black Japan podcast. We are a podcast dedicated to talking about the intersection between Black culture and Japanese culture. And so, we all obviously like Japan. I would assume that's why we're here.
No, I hate it.
Good to know.
I hated
But
every single day I was there.
good to know. But yeah, I mean, just like let's like talk about how we got to kind of like where we are and kind of like our careers and like Japan or like kind of like our like aspirations for Japan.
Let's see. Would you like to go?
How I got to how I started living in Japan.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Even like how you got interested in Japan.
Okay. Well, when I was a kid, I had a cousin that was living in Nagasaki, and she really suggested. She's the first person who ever suggested that I study abroad, and so I did when I was 17 for one summer. I was just 1 month, and I loved it so much that I decided to come back for college. I ended up going to university out there, and then I graduated. And after graduation, I wanted to stay, so I stayed and went to language school, interned at a company, and then eventually got my career started out there. I work in marketing and communications, and I had a lot of fun. But then with COVID, and I started to feel a little bit of career stagnation, so I decided to just move back to the States. And I thought, let me just-
Why? That was the worst mistake you've ever done.
Mistake
here
number
I am
one.
trying to leave this godforsaken country, and you're just like, whoop-de-doo. Time to come back to the place where black people were enslaved for like over 300 years.
I mean, if we're being like frank, we're like,
Are we really
No one's
welcome
happy we've
anywhere
been,
else?
been enslaved.
like I know, right? Like, also, like, no one in Japan was going to pay me what the companies in here, like in America, are going to pay me. And I'm not saying it was 100% fueled by money, but also, career stagnation really had me in a chokehold. Like, I wasn't really going anywhere in my career if I stayed in Japan. And I thought, in order to really step up my career and move forward with my life, what a better place to do it than in the huge commercial capital of my native country, in the United States, here in New York. So I was like, you know what, let me just move to New York, continue my career in marketing communications. And I'm happy I made the choice, but at the same time, I really did like living in Japan. I definitely struggled with the reverse culture shock coming back, and I definitely wouldn't trade that experience for the world. It kind of made me into who I am today, having spent almost 8 years there.
Oh, wow, I didn't know it was that long.
Yeah, like it would have been 8 years exactly, like if I'd moved back a month later. So like I just rounded up to 8 because
Wow.
Yeah, why not? Yeah, yeah. So I mean, here we are, the basic ass weebs. Like I like anime.
I mean that, but also, it was like, so for me at least when I went to Japan, it was like I never trust. So, I'll get into like why I went to Japan to begin with, but for me it was like a big culture shock because when I was a very like Rapunzel-y kid, so I
What is that supposed to mean?
Your hair was long?
I was going to explain, Daniel.
All right, yeah.
It meaning like I never really traveled outside of the country. I barely ever traveled out of the state. I went as far as Brooklyn. I was like, that's enough travel for me. Not
From
of my
Bronx
own
to
free
Brooklyn. Here's my
at Harlem,
Mr. World,
fuck that
Mrs.
down.
Worldwide
But it wasn't
over
of my
here.
own volition. It was because that's how my lifestyle just happened to be. So it was also just like, I wanted to like, go big or go home, right? So that was the first time going out. And it was just interesting to go to a whole other country like as the first time. But how I ended up getting involved, like interested in Japan altogether, was that when I was a kid, I was super into anime and like manga. Though I didn't know that's what it was called, I just was like, oh, the library, it has these pretty books. Didn't know they were Japanese. I just like, okay, awesome, great. And then like as I got older, like, oh, this is Japanese made, this is anime, this is manga. Then learning about the Japanese culture, I guess, well, as much as I could, because fiction is, fiction, as much as I could through the books and everything and the media in general, made me realize like, wow, I would like to travel out there someday and like see what it's like. Because again, like I never really traveled anywhere really. So going to Japan was like the first big move for me. Would have been like a great, great thing to do. And then also just giving it a test run to see how it felt like. Because after realizing that I love Japan, like, or at least I'm very interested in Japan, I want to see how it would be like if I ever lived out there. So going abroad, which is what me and Daniel had did when we were in college, that was like my test run, and I was like, yeah, I would absolutely stay there because one, it just the birthplace for all the media that I love so much, and two, Japan is super. It's, oh my god, the cleanliness, The food, the people are clean. I would feel like the same thing with you was saying, like you had like a reverse culture shock. Because going out there, I didn't have a culture shock. I was like, oh, okay, people are actually acting
It's just
decent
like
for
the
once.
anime.
No subtitles, but damn, it's just like 2D. But then coming back, I was like, damn, we live like this, like with the dirtiness and then all that. I was like, oh
Yeah,
shit,
yeah.
man, it sucks here. But financially, I would say I would agree that especially because I have a couple of friends that live in Japan that work as teachers. Some of them work as office, and they're also Black people as well, and they have the same experience. Like, it's not that financially beneficial, depending on what you do as well. But you know,
Yeah, that's why work from home. If you could do it, if you could like work for like an American company, but do it in Japan, oh man, that would be like super amazing. But
Digital nomad's probably one of the best ways to go.
I know,
Digital
which is why I'm just
Digital nomad, like you work remotely from anywhere in the world.
you like the Avatar, but cyberpunk. Yeah,
all conquering all nations
exactly.
financially.
But yeah. So like, I guess for me, I also have like weeb aspirations for Japan. So like during like high school, most of my friends spoke Spanish, and I saw that.
Oh,
and I
not to
wanted
cut you off. Yes, that was the other thing.
But to cut me off, yeah.
So about to
go.
cut you off. Yeah, that's
uh-huh,
the other thing.
yeah.
I since I do art and writing and everything, I was really interested in doing animation in Japan, but the way the financial gain is looking out there for that, I don't know about that anymore.
Well, before I was rudely interrupted.
I did say excuse me. I
Been
think.
too late though. Anyway, but like my like aspirations for Japan are to kind of like work like in the Japanese music industry, and that's because during high school most of my friends spoke Spanish, and that led me to want to like communicate in like another language. But by that time, like I didn't want to learn Spanish anymore since they forced us to learn it. So my friends and my weeb friends, so my teacher and some of my it was like some of my weeb friends and my teacher, my social history or like history teacher introduced me to anime through like Samurai Champloo, and I watched Samurai Champloo, and I'm like,
Amazing taste, first
Yeah,
of all.
yeah,
Like I just
yeah.
gotta say, I love that anime so much.
yeah. So like I watched that anime, I'm like, holy shit, Japan's like has
Rest
like
in
all
peace,
this
Nujabes.
history and like as like a first generation Jamaican American, I do understand Jamaican culture, but I don't like I'm not Jamaican. But at the same time, I'm not like, when
You
you
can
look at
just
America,
say you're Americanized, Daniel.
yeah, no, well, it's not even being Americanized because it wasn't like I was something else that I was Americanized, but like I just felt lost culturally because on the American side of things, like America only has like 400 years of history, of which our history is like
Slavery.
90% slavery, and well, like a lot of it is like slavery, and then because I didn't grow up in Jamaica, I don't consider myself Jamaican. Fully culturally, even though
I relate
I
to
do
that.
understand Jamaican culture up to like a certain point. So I felt lost, and then anime came to save the day, and now I am a fully converted weeb with
Not him
dreams.
saying he found himself
Hey, you
through
can't even let me
anime.
finish my introduction. You get to have your character moment. Cece got to have her character moment,
I
but
mean,
what
I
about
get
me?
the whole first gen like immigrant
Yeah.
kid struggle thing because like I'm first gen on my dad's side, second gen on my mom's. But I will say that living in Japan for a long time, kind of and juxtaposed against a completely different culture from my own, made me really reflect on my own culture as a Black woman, as a Black American, but also like my dad's West African,
Yeah.
my mom's Jamaican American. So like I started to think more deeply about my own culture and became a lot more introspective as a result of
Yeah.
being not isolated, but in a having thrown myself into a completely different culture.
Yeah. Yeah,
Actually,
because like
that's interesting. Go ahead.
oh no, because like that's the reason why I felt compelled to start this podcast because I started meeting like a lot more Black people during the past year and a half that speak Japanese or have some sort of ties to like Japan. So I'm like, it'll be really cool getting our stories, kind of like talking about that like intersection between Japan. Japanese culture, pop culture, and like Black American pop culture and stuff like that. Because like I tell people this, and it sounds kind of insane, but I learned to love my Blackness when I was in Japan. Like before, I guess you could say I was a bit like a little bit like a self-loathing black person, or like I had like a different relationship with my Blackness before coming to Japan. But seeing how like Japanese people appreciate like a lot of like Black pop culture and Black media and stuff like that really kind of like just like, just like made me feel good about being black, if that makes sense.
I would agree. I feel like I feel well. I feel like my main introspective moment was more like just what is my status as like a foreigner in Japan. But then like I know when I first got there, I was like, yeah, a black person, a black woman in particular, like in Japan, definitely made me realize like, 'cause, in America we don't have, well, we do and we don't. Like obviously in America there is like, I guess, racial difference awareness, like, oh, this person's black, this person's white, so on and so forth. But in Japan, it like I feel like it took it to like like a whole new level for very obvious reasons. Because especially where we were in, like, where were you in when you were in Japan?
I was in Tokyo.
Okay, so I feel like that's I know for a fact Tokyo was super different than where we were in Fukuoka. You was there before, right? In Fukuoka. So Fukuoka is literally like a suburb of Japan.
No. Fukuoka is so like Fukuoka city specifically is kind of like the Atlanta of like Japan in a sense where
I
like
actually strongly disagree.
no really no it's
'Cause,
just okay, hear me out,
Like,
like what I
in,
mean
in comparison to a place like Tokyo.
no
'Cause-
yeah like I mean like functionally it's kind of like Atlanta compared to New York where like a lot of culture, like a lot of like artistic stuff does happen, but people flock to kind of like New York / Tokyo more to like get their career started. But actually like a lot of
when I
yeah.
say like suburb, I mean because like I'm putting in retrospect in like comparison to like America. Like in the city of America, because we
in
are
the city of America, London is
in any city in America, you know how like racial diversity is not very like thought. It's like we obviously again we're aware that there's different races in the fucking area, but it's like
I see what you're saying now.
Yeah,
You're
it's
comparing
like-
the urban versus suburban lifestyle.
Yeah,
Like, you
because-
definitely see it in New York as well. Like,
Exactly, and so it's like that with Tokyo, because it's such a big central city hub and so many races, like everybody goes there because it's fucking Tokyo. It's like, because I say this because when I went to Tokyo and I was there for like a couple weeks, and a week, and I was like, people didn't really give a fuck that I was black. I feel like no one even looked at me. If they were, they were
yeah.
like not doing so as like prominently as they were doing in Fukuoka, and that's why I draw the
So they'd
urban
stare
suburban
more.
thing. Yeah, because
Yeah.
actually, I noticed that too when I was in Hokkaido. Like, 'cause I went to Hokkaido, and I did notice people would stare a lot more at me in Hokkaido than they would in Tokyo. In Tokyo, people are just like on their phones. They do not give a shit.
So they're not even paying attention to you. But
Right.
like in Fukuoka, literally the very first day I got to Fukuoka, because it was me and my friend who's also black, right? Got off the train station. This guy's on a bike. Head, neck, 360 grudge moment,
Not
watching
360.
us. And I'm like, and that was prominent throughout the entirety of the months I was there. And I've never been more, so that's just like the introspective moment that I got, 'cause I've never been more aware of who I am than when I was in Japan. I wouldn't, but it's like, I think it's also like subjective in like its effect on you, because at least in Fukuoka, and maybe just for me, I never had any issues with racism, or maybe I wasn't aware of it, or because I just kind of expected it in the back of my head. I never thought to care to,
We kind of
acknowledge
tend
it.
to expect the worst when we go overseas. As black
Literally.
people, we expect the worst. So when the
Exactly.
worst doesn't happen, we're kind of like pleasantly surprised.
yeah
Yeah,
because,
literally,
like,
I was just like,
yeah.
oh, okay, people were just there, but it was like, it wasn't malicious.
Yeah.
Right, like, they're not trying to hurt
I like
me,
to
like-
joke that like in Japan at night, I am the scariest thing walking around.
You literally, there's no fear. I've done like 3 a.m. 7-Eleven runs, streets butt empty, and I'm the only one there, and I see somebody, and they're probably like looking at me like,
What's gonna happen? It's
I
gonna
mean,
be
great.
like it's gonna be like like the movies.
so I mean, it's comforting knowing that, hey, I won't get assaulted, but it's also like, damn, I'm not the assaulter either.
Yeah, because like as I was saying before, like I feel like Fukuoka is kind of like the Atlanta of like kind of like Japan in a sense where like it is kind of like a major city and there is kind of like a lot of like artistic major things happening over there, but it's not the place people will flock to start off their career necessarily. And then actually, like, I didn't find this out until I was in Japan, obviously, or like in like Fukuoka. But like, there's like so many like famous Japanese
Yeah.
people that come from Fukuoka originally, and then obviously moved to Tokyo, Osaka, because that's just like the thing to do. But like, in that sense, I feel
Ishida, the Tokyo Ghoul creator, he's from
He's from Fukuoka.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's like crazy. Like so many like Gaino gene and like stuff like that come like Fukuoka but move
They
up
like
to like Tokyo.
stereotype. There's like a stereotype of like women in Fukuoka being gorgeous.
I've
Okay,
heard
okay.
They
Let's not
say
get into
that.
that. But after this message from our sponsors, we don't have sponsors, but I need to check on the cameras.
I have to say we have sponsors.
I'm like, oh, okay.
I mean, wait, can I? Wait, that's nice.
And I was just like, sponsors, we love that.
so this was a fucking recording. So we are back from our ad break. What was the ad about?
Discussing why one of our microphones broke, and thus me and Cece will have to share one.
Yeah, let's
Getting
go.
real ghetto.
This is being professional. Aren't we so professional? Professionality is my second middle name.
Oh my God. See, exactly. We love professionalism.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. But yeah. So as we were talking about, there's this weird thing, this weird idea in like Japan that like girls from like Fukuoka are like the cutest, and there's kind of like two reasons for that. One being the Fukuoka accent, and then the Fukuoka accent kind of gets like split up into like different sub-regional accents, but like the general accent is kind of like considered like the cutest in Japan and stuff like that. And then on top of that, people say that girls in like Fukuoka really look different than like other girls in Japan. Like I don't know why, but from like Fukuoka, like that area, apparently the girls are just cuter, like on a fundamental biological level.
We
for,
should
like,
give
whatever
some
reason.
context to this statement.
Well, the context was let's give context one more time for this.
We were discussing why is it that. I can't remember.
No, I can't either. Like the ADHD
Like-
got me in a chokehold.
Oh my god, like we were like talking about
Not us all have ADHD.
Oh my god. No,
Black
we were,
Japan ADHD
let's
podcast.
go.
Let's go.
No, but we were like talking about, why, just like Fukuoka being the Atlanta of like Japan and stuff like that, and just like then we started talking about the you brought it up that like, girls from like Fukuoka are like considered the cutest for like whatever reason, and that's where we were.
Yeah, I'm so sorry I brought that up because I don't even remember why it was relevant other than Fukuoka.
It's low-key hella irrelevant. See, look at that guy's getting real ghetto.
Yeah.
It's hella low-key hella irrelevant. What's the fucking word? Irrelevant. There we go. It's hella irrelevant. There we go. To the main topic that we first brought up.
No, I mean, okay.
Well, I mean,
It's good.
if we do want to discuss, if we want to relate, if we want to tie it back into the discussion about blacks in Japan, we can say how they all loved our accents. The amount of people who tell me, "Oh my God, I love your New York accent," I'm like,
Even though they're Japanese,
What's-
that they wouldn't be able to tell accents. Like, did
right?
you tell
I'm
them
like, huh? You mean
that
I like?
they're from like New York first, and that's why they say.
I mean, I would say America, but then
New
it would
York,
be like,
yeah.
where I'd be like, oh, they're gonna, oh my God, I love. I mean, even like fellow international said it, and I'm like, you
Oh,
like it when I
yeah, that's
speak illiterate,
weird,
huh?
yeah. Like I went to Boston back in like college, no, back in like high school, and like people were telling me, oh, like you got that, like you got that New York accent. I'm like, what does that even mean?
I'm gonna be real. I don't even hear your accent. I hear yours, but I don't hear yours.
I know, it's
Because
right.
I
was like so
speak
confused.
ghetto. Not
Yeah.
ghetto, but I prefer to say I speak with Ebonics.
Not even that, because like there's still like regional AAVE. Like even if you speak like straight standard English, I still hear the New York accent a little bit. But every time I tell someone from New York that, they're like, "What are you talking about? I don't hear. What are you talking about? I don't hear it." And I'm like, "Okay."
Literally to this day, like so many people have said it. Like even like people, again, who are just regular Americans. I'm like, what is a New York accent?
No, especially
is a
like
New
as
York
a,
accent?
no, because like dead ass and like all like those. Like,
So
slang
just
songs
speak. So
and-
a speaking New York accent is equivalent English. New York a New York accent is equivalent to just speaking with like a lot of Ebonics.
No.
No, the New York accent is just literally the way that you talk. Okay, that's just.
You
Okay,
are the
what
New York
is
accent, yeah.
what it? You know the. What is? All right, so give me an example. Like, what is
I
one
don't-
word
No,
like that? It's I guess regular that a New Yorker would say. That's different.
like dead ass. That's like a New York
I
original.
feel like
word.
it. Thank you for
Timberland.
saying that. Thank you for saying that.
Tim's. I don't know. Like you don't know how you speak. You're like you went to school for English.
Well, I mean,
There's no excuse for that.
bloop. I mean,
When it comes comes to regional dialects, I definitely hear the New York accent because I'm not from here. But I'd say that you definitely have one. But then when I was in Japan, like I remember people would ask me, "Oh, what part of America are you from?" And I'd always be like, "I'm from the southern part," because I knew that they did not know about South Carolina.
What's
Yeah,
a Georgia?
So like, right? So like, they're like, they'd be like, "Ah, 聞いたことあるけど場所わかんない." Like I would hear that all the fucking time. And then I remember just like, I just got into the habit of being like, "Oh, the southern part, down south, down south." And then when I moved back to the States, they'd be like, "Oh, so where are you from?" And I'm like, "Oh, I grew up down south." They're like, "Okay, what state?" And I forget, like, obviously a person in New York knows where South Carolina is.
No, but like it's true because I guess like especially where like for foreigners and especially in Japan, it's like oh, you're from America. All they know is California, New York, South. That's it. That's America, and everywhere else.
No, they know North Carolina. Because I would be like, "Oh, I'm from South Carolina." And they'd be like, "Oh my God, just like Michael Jordan." I'm like, North. North. He's from North Carolina. But they know North Carolina because of Michael Jordan.
Well, between like Atlanta, both the TV show and the actual city, and like
If I talk to older people, I would say close to Atlanta, and they'd be like, "Oh, that's where the Olympics were." But if I talk to like anyone born in or after 1994, they're just like,
oh,
"What?"
oh, the show. I love Childish Gambino.
Not even that, honestly.
Yeah, do they even know Childish Gambino? Was like, I'm about to say Childish Gamizo. Shout out Childish Gamizo.
Yeah.
They know this is America because I remember being in the club when that song came out that summer, and whenever they would play it in the club, and I'd be like, "All right, let's go get a drink." Like, we'd be like on the dance floor, and then they'd play it at the club, and I'd be like, "Okay, let's go get a drink." Like I can't. Like, I'm not trying to think about oppression. I'm trying to turn up. Like I don't
Trying to
have
get lit right
the
now,
bandwidth
yeah.
for this right now. Like I came here to get lit and forget about my real troubles. But
And I would say at least like just to bring it back to I guess like the experience in Japan, like when it comes to that, it's just like again, I generally feel like you don't get like I want to say you don't get ostracized, but it's definitely like a wall up between you and Japanese people. Like, and it's ironic. I feel like that wall is up between, like, especially like in terms of like understanding each other. There's a wall up between you and like the people who are your age, as opposed to like the older people. The older people seem be a little bit more open to like speaking with you and like in general, like in terms of like
Yeah, that's like definitely like a thing with like younger. No, like I wouldn't say that's like a
they're more
50-50
knowledgeable
thing,
too.
but especially because like the whole thing with like communicating with like Japanese people is that if they feel like they can't properly communicate with you, they won't. And like I experienced this firsthand because like I was like deeply a part or like actively a part of like kind of like two like different like clubs when I was in Japan, like a music club and then just a sort of like sports hangout club. And like, I was like the only foreigner inside the whole club because they don't really do kind of like, exchange student kind of like reach out or like anything like that. Because again, exchange students are like only around for like a short amount of time and stuff like that. So I had to go out of like my way to kind of like, find these like groups and people. And like at first, like I wouldn't say people were like apprehensive, but as soon as like they like understood that I could like understand them like on a like on a deeper level just because of like my like Japanese skills, that's when I really started to be included in things and stuff like that. And that's not to say that it's kind of like I was like being like, oppressed or kind of like, any like general sort of like what's the word I'm looking for? Not like racism, but just general what's like general racism?
Xenophobia.
Discrimination, like I was being like discriminated against, like anything like that. But like, yeah, it's just like a matter where like if you like truly want to experience Japanese culture, I feel like you need to have like a certain level of like language acquisition.
I feel like yes and no. Again, everything that we're saying is completely subjective. Everybody like has their own opinion about or their own experience about what happened. But I feel like because most of my friends, so I had like there was two other black people who are my friends. It was my friend Gabby and Bria, and I feel like aside from them is like the rest of them were all like white and Hispanic or whatever. And I feel like they had an easier time making Japanese friends than me.
You're too tall for them.
Because
you
it's
intimidate them.
not my fault. I'm a fucking tree. Like, and
Wait, how tall are you?
I'm like just 5'7", 5'8", maybe.
Girl, I'm 5'9".
And you made Japanese friends easily? More so than like say I guess it was just me. Then maybe I was so beautiful I intimidated the fuck out of everybody. Maybe that was it.
Honestly, I
Mike, Tia, Mike. Yeah. There
I mean, honestly, I recognize that like my personality, I'm just very much an extrovert. Like I always have been ever since I was a child. Like my mom was terrified because I'd always run up to strangers and strike up conversations with them when I was like a toddler. And I literally ran off with a random family one time because I made friends with a girl in the family. No, I
I
remember
am your
like
daughter now.
I like
you have 2 daughters now.
I brought the conversation. I brought this up to my mom, and I was like, "Remember that time at the aquarium when I was like 3?" And she was like, "Which time?" And I was like, "I did it more than once." And she was like, "Child, I thought you were gonna get abducted." But then I learned that the extroverted kids are less likely to get abducted because the child snatchers are like they see them as liabilities. So I never got snatched up as a child. But as an adult, that translated into me like not being afraid to like strike up conversations with people. Especially if I'm like I found a local bar when I was in Tokyo, and I just would go there regularly. They had really good okonomiyaki, and I made friends with the owner. I was there so often to the point where I was even at his wedding reception. Like him and his wife, they're like my big brother and sister in Tokyo to me, like in Ikebukuro. Shout out to Shinji.
The thing is, like, I swear that even then it was just so weird because all of my friends, like my Japanese friends, I met through him. I didn't make really any on my own. My other international friends did. 'Cause I felt like it was just like, I don't know. And I'm pretty extroverted too. I mean, well, granted, I will give some I will acquiesce and say like, yeah, to an extent. I was a little bit shy about talking to like Japanese people because like I couldn't speak Japanese that well. Like I could read it and write it at the time, but my speaking skills were like poor. But I still would try. And even my friends who didn't speak, I was better at speaking than them. Like if I really put my mind to it, even when they weren't like good with like even reading or writing, they still made like more Japanese friends than me. So I was just like, I feel like there was a barrier. That's just my personal opinion about it. But.
Yeah, I see, I understand. I mean, I don't know. I mean, everybody's different for sure, but I definitely feel like with your personality, if you were more fluent in Japanese, I feel like maybe you like wouldn't have like felt that, and that like isn't like a knock against you or like anything like that. Like it's just a matter of like learning the language more and like stuff like that. But like yeah.
But it was still overall. I mean, I would say at the very least, nobody treated me wrong, and that's the case with most people's experience. No, even like especially because I know like my white and Hispanic friends, they said they felt like they had like some issues with xenophobia. I wouldn't say. I feel like it's gonna be sound like a little bit like self-centered to say. I feel like black people are the ones that get the racist aspect, if there were any more than any other races.
I mean,
in Japan,
it's kind of like speaks to an indictment of our society in the United States. Like growing up black in America and even a black woman in America, you're at the intersection of racism and misogyny. So like when you grow up
double
with that,
whammy, yeah.
When you grow up with that, you kind of go to Japan and you kind of have a thick skin and like a toughened shell because you expect the worst. And so like you go to a doctor and you tell them you're in pain and the doctor believes you. You're like, what?
Not to mention the price of healthcare.
That's so depressing.
I know.
Oh my god.
We laugh so we don't cry.
That and the police too. No police have ever stopped us. I don't even think.
No, that's the thing about. That's the
Actually,
thing about.
never
like,
saw any police officers in Japan.
That's the
well, at
thing
least
about,
where
like-
we were.
Not at the station, even like the train station.
Well, we did. Were there really any stations?
No. So
nearby?
like I got like
single
stopped
coal
by
mine.
police.
I don't think I paid attention
Only
then.
like
I don't
like
recall
went to Japan.
seeing.
I got like stopped by police and like I was just like riding my bike.
Not the racial profiling.
Riding your bike in Japan versus like riding it
Internationally.
back in America. Two like completely different endings. But like when I was in Japan, obviously, so like I was like riding my bike like to and from, like I was just like going to like the downtown area, like away from like the school and stuff like that, and the police officer stopped me, and for like a reason, like he obviously saw I was like a foreigner, and he just basically asked me, oh, is this bike registered, let me see your ID and stuff like that, and like
Well,
I was
actually,
feeling-
so about that, I think that's just the bike thing because my
yeah.
friend who was white and she's female, she got stopped for that same
Yeah,
thing.
so like that is like this is like me. This is for me to say that like racism in Japan is much more about whether you're Japanese or not like anything to do with like generally, and whether you look Japanese or not, because you could have been like
I have a similar story to that. So basically, when I was in Tokyo, I was there for 8 years, so plenty of time to get stopped. I only got stopped like twice, and that's lucky because a lot of I had some friends who would get stopped all the time.
They're black?
Yeah, like black, and then also like some white people too, depending on where you are.
Are they male?
Yeah. So that's the other thing too. Like I feel like with men, it's different. Like I feel like men get stopped more often. Actually no, I got stopped 3 times. I lied. 3 times in 8 years. One time the cop just stopped and asked me for my ID, and then he decided to have a conversation with me the
They
whole
do
time.
that all the time, apparently.
And
yeah.
I'm just like,
They're just lonely.
I was just like,
Can I have some conversation?
sir, are you bored? Because my Japanese friends told me this neighborhood is the ghetto, but apparently the cops are so bored they're stopping me to have a conversation with me. Like I
But
don't.
like a Japanese
I
ghetto,
don't-
it can't be. I mean, compared to like the
Well,
ghetto over here.
It was- but-
let's just stop you real quick with that one. With the Japanese ghetto, Osaka, bro, that shit is like New York City to the maximum.
Really?
Like, have you been to Osaka?
I heard that the area close to Tsutenkaku.
I don't think I can't remember if I was there, but the one place that really stuck out to me where I was like, yo, this is dead ass New York, Osaka Nanba. That was girl, the trains where they have a train overhead, right? I was like, that's Bronx right there. And then and then additionally, it was like there was graffiti on it. There were trash. I was like, this is not the Japan I know. Did I like walk into like Asian New York or some shit? Like,
Shinjuku is pretty dirty too.
I don't think it was. This seemed pretty like.
Like where the host clubs are at, that area.
I walked by Kabukicho right in midnight too. Me and my friend, we were like, it was like from 1 o'clock to like 3 a.m.
I've never felt like, oh my god, I'm unsafe, but I'm just like, oh god, rats everywhere. But I mean, it's a city, so what do you expect?
I will say overall, Tokyo in general is not as clean as Fukuoka because you don't expect that from a city, right? But I didn't see any rats.
You did not see rats in Tokyo at all? First of all,
Well, you lived there for like so long, so you probably saw like everything under the sun at some point, right?
I mean, I feel like Remy and his friends stayed posted the fuck up in like Shibuya and Shinjuku and like sometimes Ikebukuro as well, simply because like it's a high traffic area. But like in the residential parts of Tokyo, it's more like there are lots of stray cats everywhere. When I put 2 and 2 together, I was like, there are cats everywhere except for these areas because
You gotta put the cats there, and then they'll eat all the rats.
But then I remember like this one summer, there was a Shibuya. In Shibuya, there was a Family Mart, and it got shut down because there were rats. And like the video went fucking viral.
Wait, okay, I will.
And the rats were just like thriving. They were out there just like living their best life. One rat was like posted up in like the baked goods section, just like, girl, like, and I'm just like, oh my god. And it got shut down for like a month, and then they reopened. But I was just like,
I will say one thing. Okay, so the dirt. Oh my god, I'll never forget the dirt. I'll never forget
The
this.
dirt?
The dirt, yeah, the grime, the filthiness. When it was me and my friend, we were like, it was like fucking 2 a.m. because me and my friend, we were like in Tokyo. Shout out to that friend, you know who you are. We ended up going on the wrong side of the train, so our Airbnb was at the top, the last stop on the upper town side.
the new south exit? Is that where you went? I remember like there's like the main exit, there's a new south exit, and it's a bitch to get to the other side.
Oh, I'm not sure, but we fucked up, and we ended up having to walk we ended up taking the train to the last stop downtown. So we had to walk all from the last stop to the very top. And that was insane. But we really discovered Japan, like Tokyo at night, because we walked from Roppongi, Ikebukuro, Ginza.
You did all of that in one night?
It was 12 a.m.
When I heard
we
this
got
story, I'm
home
like,
at
no way.
because we had to. We didn't want to spend like fucking a whole rent worth of money for the car fare. So the cab. She was like, well, we're gonna also see what the fuck it's like. The amount of like fucking drunk businessmen we seen like face down, ass up, knocked out. Was insane. But we really saw Tokyo at night, which was dead but dirty, kind of. Except for like the financial district, that was pretty clean. Yeah, we walked from top to bottom, dead ass.
Wait, so you walked from Shibuya to Asakusa?
That's where Airbnb was, Osaka. So yeah, we
You can. How long would that take
was a 3.5 hour.
from Shibuya to Asakusa? You walked the entire Ginza-sen. Okay, you didn't go past Ikebukuro, but yes,
I think the line was orange.
it's like it's like the goldish orange with the G.
Yes, there we go.
The
Yeah,
Ginza-sen, right?
Yes.
It goes from Shibuya to Asakusa, and you have to go through Ueno and like Ueno, like
We walked through
Ginza and like Shimbashi,
Akihabara?
Akihabara. Yeah.
walked the entire way. And we realized it was like that because we was at Akihabara that later that day. We was like, is that the fucking Sega building? But to sum it up, right? So at one point, like, and we were also drunk, right? So I was like, yo, I gotta pee. And usually, Japan is so known for like clean bathrooms, like if it's public. We went to this one, I'll never forget. This shit made a New York transit station bathroom look pristine. It was a 7-Eleven, and it was in Ikebukuro. I'm like, oh.
Why were you passing Ikebukuro if you're going from Shibuya to?
Girl, we was following whatever the fuck Google Maps told us.
Because like Ikebukuro up here, Shibuya's here, and then
We were
Asakusa's
following
here.
what
So you have to go here, like instead of
we legitimately followed whatever. We followed whatever the Google Map told us, and we realized that this shit fucked us up. But we went to. I just remember that we walked along the train line. That's mostly what I can remember. But so we went. I was like, I gotta go pee really bad. We went to this Family Mart, a 7-Eleven, whatever it was. I have never. In that exact moment, I became a ballerina. And I mean, like, Swan Lake, I've been training for like 20 years. I'm a prima donna ballerina. That's how fucking filthy that bathroom was. I could just remember now, even through my drunken haze, that just so with me the fuck up. I was like, that, I don't want to talk about it no more. It was so bad.
Pro tip. In Tokyo, the trains do typically run until about midnight-ish. But the Yamanote line and the Chuo line run the longest. So if you're staying in like central Tokyo somewhere, find the Yamanote line station. If it's like around like midnight and you're worried about missing the last, subway, find the Yamanote line station that's closest to where you are. So in your case, it would have been Ueno. If you still had time to catch the Yamanote line, you just go up to Ueno or just get in the northeast somewhere.
All right, here's
and
the
then
thing.
from there, you take this taxi and it's not that bad.
Let me tell you what happened though, right? So because we did not bank on that situation happening, and this was Japan was a movie. My phone was on 10%. We didn't have, and my portable had died, and my friend didn't have a portable. We had no time to think about what we're gonna do. We were just like, we do not have all this money on hand. Google Maps is telling us what to do. We're getting a free fucking tour the city at night. So we were like, what we're gonna do? And then also additionally because we didn't have really good Japanese skills, like because our Japanese friends went home because they thought we knew what the fuck to do, how to get back to the Airbnb. So we were like, there's no cars really coming by. We don't know what service to even call for a cab. We don't got no choice. And I'm saying God exists because we made it home with 3% left on my phone. I don't know how. And people who shit talk Android, think about that. Apple wouldn't have done that for you.
Especially not after like 2 years of owning the phone. Like, and I say this as an I say this as an iPhone user. I would have been fucked.
Exactly. That Android was that thing was there. It was the best thing ever. That phone was like, and it had location on, so location eats up your battery. Mm-hmm. Don't know how it did it. This was a Galaxy S8, y'all. S8, not even an S10. No, it was a 6. Yeah, it was a Galaxy S6. Think about that next time you install Android, okay?
Samsung, please sponsor us. Thank you very much.
The Galaxy S6 came out like 2014, 15.
But anyway.
So wait, is Samsung going to be our sponsor?
Okay.
Samsung, sponsor me. I'm just saying, all of us really, but.
Okay, moral of the story is that charge your phone before you start walking out in a place where you can't fully speak the language.
It was an accident. We didn't intend to get lost, sir.
Obviously, but okay.
Oh, let me get lost.
Because like you're like, because I was like like
Resourceful.
If I didn't have the language competency at that time that I had in that I had in Japanese, I would feel so afraid going anywhere because like I don't want to get lost or like go, like you guys or like you're like so brave for like doing that because I couldn't imagine.
Well, no, don't get me lying. I was very. It's like for me, it's like it's my personality is that like I get very resourceful. Like you never catch me slacking. So I get super resourceful in times of need. I just hate the being in those situations. But actually, so when we first did get to Japan, so to put in perspective, I'm a very independent person. I do things on my own. I don't care. I like doing that by myself. I've never been more dependent on people than ever than when I was in Japan. It took me like about a month and a half to even think to go to the store by myself because I was like, so Gabby, you want to go to the store real quick? Like, yeah, we're going to the store. I would legitimately starve until somebody came to the store with me because I was like, okay, I know how to get to the store. I kind of do now, but I don't know what the fuck to say. Or I would just be worried about, oh my God, like, am I going to sound fucking stupid? Or like, they would just like elude me as to what to say. So it took like a month and a half for me to work up and this is the most independent, confident person that I was like, I'm gonna look stupid, man. I don't know about that. And then, just real one last thing. And then it took me the last month I was in Japan to take the train by myself. And I was so scared. I was like, what if I get lost? What if my phone does? What am I gonna do? Like, I was super panicked.
Okay.
I had a Samsung. That Samsung was gonna come through in clutch.
And like I don't think we could get sponsored by Samsung because this is like a
if we did
podcast
Black in
about
Korea,
Japan.
then
we just have like Korean subtitles. That's what kind of like legitimize it enough. Or I'm gonna get some of my Korean friends that know Korean and start like an offshoot.
But one thing I will say is, okay,
I will certainly just get I'll get a Samsung camera. We'll record with that. Then they'll have to sponsor us because they'll see quality camera video on Samsung.
Yeah,
we love Samsung. But no, but definitely I'd say like living in Japan kind of humbles you because you're starting over with like learning how to read. Because when you study, right? So when we study Spanish as an American, or you study a European a Western European language, like you don't have to relearn the alphabet. But like with Japanese, with Korean, with Chinese, you have to start all over from scratch. And I literally have asked like children, I'd be like, hey, what does this say? Okay, thanks. And the kid's like 8.
Oh my God.
Oh, it's like so humbling and low-key embarrassing. And I'm like, hey, what does this say? Because I remember my host brothers when I was in Hokkaido when I was 17. My host brothers were these 3 little 8-year-old boys, triplets, adorable.
Whoa, triplets, that's crazy.
I know. I was just like, oh, there's 3 of you. Such sweet kids. And I remember I would watch them read things and I try to read like along with them and I'm like, fuck, they're reading too fast. Oh shit, wait, how do they read that so quickly? And then like I was like, "Kore wa nan desu ka?" Like, how do you like what is this? Like, because I couldn't read like the kanji.
Being in Japan definitely that's the only time a kid will ever have any seniority over you. Is in the most fundamental aspects of living, which is just communication, is when a kid will be superior to you. You'll be like, how the alphabet goes again. You'll like stumble and try to be like, oh, I, E, E, U, sa, she, say, tu. And they're like, it's su. You're like, what I just said. Hi, hu, he, ho.
I am like really laughing at this because I didn't. Okay, so there's this song, total tangent. There's this song by this band called Polyphia, and they like collaborated. No, so they're American, but they collaborated with this half Japanese girl. And like in like the breakdown of the song, she like sings like the full Japanese outfit, like aiu e o sasi suse so kaki kuke ko. Yeah, I looked like bars.
Bars.
It's like
There's a warning on the screen there.
Oh, if there's a warning, I think that's,
I don't know what it says.
Yeah. Okay, so if there's a warning on the screen, I feel like that should be a cutoff point for this podcast, for this pilot episode. But
yeah, we left off on such a. Well, it's like we just left you blue balled essentially.
We're gonna leave them wanting more.
We're gonna have to edit the hell out of this because we just talked about a bunch of random shit.
No, it's fine. This is what podcast is for. You think podcasts are supposed to be constructive? No.
Like, have you seen trash taste? They have no. They're they're a tree branch. They're
Of course they
tree
know
with
trash
branches.
taste.
That's how
Tia,
bad they
no,
are.
Tia, come on,
I don't know what that is.
Okay, we are trying to be the black trash taste. That's where I'm like ending this. Goodbye.
Are we?
See you
What
in the
is
next
that?
episode.
What am I?